and welcome back to the start of another state-only challenge on this channel. We just finished off the Ohio-only challenge, finishing it in 3 seasons. If you're not aware of the rules of this series challenge, if you haven't watched either this or the previous one, the Ohio one, or the first one, the California only, the information will all be down in the description box below, but we'll talk about it a bit as we go. But the premise is we build a team strictly from players who played in a single state. So for the Ohio one, Ohio State, Ohio, Miami of Ohio. They have to play at a college from a certain state, or if there's not enough players from one state, states. So as I just mentioned, we did Ohio last, completing that at the end of season 3. The California only one we completed at the end of season 4. We have until the end of season 5 to win a Super Bowl with a team built entirely from one state. If we don't, we fail the challenge. So today we will be starting off another one, and we're at the beginning here of the stages of choosing our new team that we'll be taking over. It will be a fantasy draft, so we're really just picking uniforms and stadium. Now, I always leave this up to you guys to choose who we are going to do next. So I had posted a poll on Twitter as well as the posts on YouTube. About a day before I think the poll was set to go out, YouTube sent me an email like, hey, we're giving you posts now. So I was like, all right, good timing. So there were 2 places you guys were able to vote. If you didn't vote, no problem, you could vote on the next one. But at the end of all my series, all my sports series at least, you'll have a chance to vote. So for this one, I gave you guys 4 different options. Those being for the state onlys, Florida and Georgia. Then the states were 2 different ones, the Pacific Northwest, which included Washington, Oregon, Idaho, and Wyoming, and then kind of the Pacific Southwest, if you will, which included Hawaii, Arizona, New Mexico, Nevada, and Utah. Since we already did California, that one was excluded because they had plenty of players. So you guys were able to vote, and it was pretty much unanimous. You guys chose Florida. So we will be heading to Miami. I am choosing them. Obviously, we also have the Jacksonville Jaguars. I'm going with Miami strictly because I like the uniforms more, and the stadium also looks a lot nicer. So Miami will be the new team that we'll be taking over, and we will be using a custom coach. So welcome back to the NFL, Tim Tebow. Obviously, this does not look like him. It's the closest face that they have available for me to use, but it'll work out. But Tim Tebow back in the NFL, this time will just be coaching. As for the league rules, this will be primarily sim-based. I will mostly be making coaching decisions, like going for it on 4th down. I'll jump in, basically play a play, try to give us the first down. If we don't get it, then back over to the sim. Occasionally, I will play a full drive. It's not going to be all the time. It will primarily be a sim-based series. And that is why we're playing on All Pro, because that's the way Madden was originally designed, was through All Pro. That's how it's quote-unquote optimized. In my actual traditional franchise, the Cardinals franchise, I play on All Madden because I'm better than All Pro. Not trying to brag, but better. But yeah, so that will be pretty much the only difference there. Just going to adjust that and then going to bump up the quarter length to 8 minutes. That's what we've played all of the franchises on. I think that gives us a good amount of time. Now, one more caveat that we're going to have to this challenge that makes it even more difficult is that we can only draft from one school before we could draft from the rest. And I leave that completely up to chance. So I'm going to lean over to my computer over here and get the spinny wheel pulled up. So basically, like I said, I don't leave it up to me whatsoever as to who we do first. All the schools that we can draft from, at least all the FBS schools that we could draft from, are on here. There might be some from non-FBS schools, and that's fine. We could still draft from them once we see that they're available. But like I said, only one school that we could draft for first. So I'll lean over here, I'll hit the spinny wheel, and we will find out who we will be drafting from. So to start off with, we will be drafting from South Florida. So they will be the one and only school. Again, sorry, leaning over here so I could get that off the screen. But yeah, they are the only school we can draft from first. So what that means is we have to draft all available players from that team first. And I've put together an Excel spreadsheet of all the available players, plus or minus for human error. There might be some guys that are no longer actually playing, they might have retired, or there might be guys who are playing but aren't on my list. We've come across that a couple times, but for the most part, the list is pretty solid. So I have an idea of who all is available, and we have to draft from them first. And I'm not sure if it is a positive or a negative, but there are, I think I counted 9 available players from South Florida that we can draft first. So that does help us out in a way that we could draft from the other schools fairly early on in the draft, but might limit who all we eventually have. Some of the top end guys from the other schools may not be available by the time we draft from, well, South Florida. That's part of the challenge, makes it a little bit more difficult. So let's get started with the draft. And we are picking late here in the, well, and in pretty much all of it. Actually, no, it is different each round. That's weird. But yeah, we will be picking 26, so probably a lot of the top end guys probably already off the board. There are still some 99 guys available with Aaron Donald, Trent Williams, but again, we can only draft from certain players. So while I look over at my board here, these are the players I have from South Florida: Jason Pierre-Paul, Mike Love, Mitchell Wilcox, DeErnest Johnson, Marlon Mack, Austin Ryder, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, Rodney Adams, and D'Adrian Sennett. So we have a couple receivers, a couple running backs, a couple offensive linemen. Actually, wait, just one offensive lineman, two defensive linemen, and a linebacker and tight end. So it looks like, well, I'm looking at the board. Wow, that name always gives me trouble. Marquez Valdez-Scantling is probably going to be the highest overall, and it looks like he's a 77 overall. So possibility to be our number 1 pick. A couple other options. Again, I'm looking at the depth chart here because it gives me an idea. JPP probably wouldn't be higher. Mitchell Wilcox, I wouldn't think so. Marlon Mack could be higher. And no, I was completely wrong there. Marlon Mack is definitely not the highest there. So Austin Ryder, listed as offensive center, it would be the highest overall offensive lineman that we could get, at least at this point. And he is a 69. So definitely looks like our first pick will be receiver Marquez Valdez-Scantling. So let's get that done here. Feel weird picking a at least former Green Bay Packer guy here, but a lot of speed, some deep and medium route running. Release could be better. Solid hands. Not too bad of a pick. He will be our first pick. Jason Pierre-Paul in the second round, I believe, would be our next highest overall. Expected him to be a little bit lower than a 74, but JPP will be headed into our Florida-only team. And at the running back spot, we actually have a couple different options with DeErnest Johnson and then, of course, Marlon Mack. So with Johnson, we have a 5'10", 208. I feel like that should be around the same size as Mack. A little bit more of a balanced attack here with less speed, but some trucking and agility. Hands are okay. And yeah, pretty similar size. Mack a little bit taller, 6 foot 210, very similar age. And actually speed is pretty similar, but has a lack of trucking ability. Hands about the same, but I think these could be a solid 1-2 punch. So let's go with DeErnest Johnson, and then we'll go right back and get Mack, get ourselves a running back duo. So with the next pick, we will go ahead and pick up Johnson. And like I said, Mack would be our next pick, so running back duo is confirmed. And now it comes down to a little bit of some lower overall guys. There is D'Adrian Sennett, who's a 69 overall. And how old is Sennett? At 28 years old, so not of super high priority, but someone we still need to try to look to get on roster. And actually the only 2 available players currently left, because it doesn't give us access to everyone off the get-go, so if there are too many higher overall players before some of the lower overall players, we don't have access to them yet. So Austin Ryder as well as Sennett are the next two available guys. So let's go ahead and start with the offensive lineman, and then we'll go right back and get Sennett. And luckily, Sennett's still here, so no one else drafting in the higher 60s, so we'll bring in at least our second defensive player. And now that we've picked from all the available players from South Florida that are currently given to us, again, they might show up later in the draft or at least in the open free agency after the draft. But now that all of the other guys are gone that we had from that first available school that we could draft from, it's now open for us to draft from any school. So the first thing I want to do is see if we have any quarterbacks available, and we do. We do have Jameis Winston. He's the highest overall Florida school quarterback, so unfortunately our coach can't play. So Jameis Winston, he still has good enough ratings, at least for 1 year. We'll see if someone ends up popping up in the draft, but I want to make sure we get ourselves a quarterback. So Jameis Winston is in. So now that I have my quarterback, the next kind of groups that I would like to go after would be offensive lineman and corner. So I'm going to see if there's just anyone from some available schools like Trent Brown from Florida that is available. He is the best next left tackle. And he's actually the only offensive lineman available to us in the top 7 of each of the line spots. So let's jump over to corner and see if there's anyone else. And there is Shaquille Griffin out of UCF, University of Central Florida. Both of them are 84s. I think we need to go after a corner first, and hopefully we'll still have the offensive lineman available for us. Shaquille Griffin is definitely more of a zone cover guy, but has some man ability, definitely has some press. He would be our number 1 corner, so let's lock that down. However, going with Griffin, we do miss out on the left tackle, so our offensive line is going to take a little bit of a hit. The next available guy I see here is DJ Humphries at a 78, but other positions we could go for with the fact that there aren't any other Florida school guys this high means we have a little bit of time before we need to go back and address any of these offensive line spots. Primarily now maybe look to the defensive line. We do have 2 players there, only one of which looks like he could really start. Jawan Taylor is another guy to keep our eye on at the other tackle spot. And I think with our next pick here, we're going to go out of Florida Atlantic with Trey Hendrickson. Right end, he's got a little bit of youth still to him, 27 years old. He has speed, has some strength, might be able to provide us a little bit of flexibility in terms of what kind of defense we end up playing. He doesn't have much block shedding, so something to consider, but 86 overall. And how about we go for a little bit of a younger guy here in Jalen Phillips, listed at right outside linebacker, has good size, 6'5", 260, is 23 years old, out of Miami, and he actually has a decent blend, kind of could take him in whatever direction we want. Actually looks fairly similar to Hendrickson, at least in terms of style, but with a higher block shedding upside. So I think that would be a solid get for us, so definitely going to bring him in. And in the Ohio Only Challenge, Jerome Baker was a huge player for us. Could Denzel Perriman end up being that same guy? He is a little bit older than Jerome Baker at 29 years old, listed as a run stopper. Really doesn't provide much in terms of coverage, but run stopping is key. So, hey, why not? Denzel Perriman, he's in. And I'm getting a little bit cautious about our offensive line. So let's go ahead and pick up DJ Humphries as one of our higher overall offensive linemen. He's a balanced guy, so that'll be good for us. Provide us a little bit of flexibility, move some players around if we need to. And we'll go right back to offensive line. This time go with Jawan Taylor on the opposite side of the line. Much younger at 24. He is strictly a pass blocker. So I'm honestly thinking maybe moving him over to that left tackle spot and playing Humphries at the right tackle, because primarily the right tackle is a little bit more balanced while the left tackle is a pass blocker. So that might be what we end up doing. Want to make sure we lock down some good offensive linemen. He's the next highest overall. And we're looking pretty light at receiver, and I know Van Jefferson always plays pretty well in my Madden franchises, typically against me. So let's go ahead and pick him up. He'll be our number 2 receiver, at least for now. We're going to go back over to corner because corner is a big position in the NFL currently. On the older side, Xavier Rhodes. Do we end up playing him at corner, or does he maybe move over to a safety spot for us? Free safety might be something interesting, considering he's lost at least a little bit of his step, but still has some press and zone ability. So let's bring in a vet, might be able to help out some younger guys down the line. And we're going to maybe reach a little bit on Keanu Neal, listed at strong safety, but being 6'1", 222, he doesn't have great cover skills. I think we actually move him back down to linebacker. I think he played there a little bit. Not going to have a great amount of block shedding, but as a nickel linebacker, I think he could be great for us. So Keanu Neal is in with some player flexibility. Now let's go back over to the defensive line with Jonathan Grenard. 6'3", 263, 25 years old. And is it Grenard or Greenard? I think it's Grenard, if I remember hearing it correctly. He has a little bit less strength, definitely more of an edge kind of specialist. Again, provide us a little bit of position flexibility. And if we go with a 4-3 or a 3-4, maybe even we go with a 3-3-5. That's always a possibility, and we will be doing that in our Cardinals traditional franchise. So Grenard is in with this team. And I've been looking for a big guy to put in the middle of our defensive line, and Tyler Tart, I think, was possibly that guy at 6'2", 304, 25 years old, out of Florida International. My bad, pretty sure that's a rivalry. Does not have much speed, but has good strength. Power moves pretty good. A little bit of block shedding, might be a bit of an interior pass rusher for us with good tackle ability. Not too bad. And if we're looking for a really good slot kind of guy, T.Y. Hilton might be him. 5'10", 183, on the older side, 32 years old, but still has a step to him, 91 speed, 90 acceleration, solid hands, decent route running, release isn't great, but about on par with the rest of the team, but has some after the catch ability. Why not? Let's bring in the vet here. And I think the run of some older guys might continue here. LaMarcus Joyner, listed free safety, 5'8", 185, 31 years old, played at Florida State. Isn't the fastest guy, does have some hit power, so might play maybe a strong safety. At least if Keanu Neal goes down to linebacker, maybe he slides in. Not quite sure, but again, position flexibility is always good to have. And because I think he's the highest overall offensive lineman available right now for us, Eric Flowers, 6'6", 329, 28 years old, played in Miami. He's more of a run blocker, but pass blocking isn't completely awful, so some possibility there. Again, highest available player for this position group left, so we'll take him. And with today's air it out league, it's never a bad idea to have a good amount of receivers, so why not go with Traquan Smith, a little bit younger than some of our other receivers, 26 years old, 6'2", 210, played for University of Central Florida, has a bit of speed, again, solid hands, decent route running, release, about on par with the rest of the team. I think he would fit in very well. And it looks like we might just be having a bit of an older cornerback starting group. We'll go with Quentin Dunbar next, 6'2", 202, 30 years old. He did play in Florida. He has a little bit of speed, definitely a bit more of a zone cover guy with a little bit of press. Maybe he might be our slot guy, perhaps. We'll see where they end up lining up, but he will definitely be our third highest overall corner. And with the next highest overall for offensive line, we have John Feliciano, 6'4", 325, 30 years old. Again, played in Miami. He has some good strength. The rest of his skills definitely on the downgrade. Gonna need to look for some offensive linemen early, hopefully in some drafts. And again, another vet here to help out the team, Carlos Dunlap, 6'6", 285, 33 years old, played at Florida. Does not have any power moves, has some finesse moves with a little bit of some speed and strength. Primarily just another body there to help try to maybe develop some younger guys down the line as well. And let's get ourselves another inside linebacker here, Alex Anzalone, 6'3", 241, 27 years old, also played at Florida, has some speed, some tackling. Cover skills aren't great, but about balanced at least, so field general is normally what my archetype is for him, so it works out. And we could definitely use some more run stoppers in the interior of our defensive line. So Taven Bryan, 6'5", 291, 26 years old, out of Florida. He actually he's more of a power rusher, but they have him listed as run stopper. We could develop him in that way. He's at least a little bit younger. it's better than some of the 30-plus-year-olds we've been getting. And adding some depth to corner is Artie Burns out of Miami, 6 foot, 197, 27 years old. They say, again, man-to-man, but his zone is definitely better, has some decent press ability, someone who we could try to develop, and being at least a little bit younger can see at least a few more upgrades. Now, going after a position we have not addressed yet is tight end with Jordan Akins. 6'4", 250, 30 years old. Again, one of the older guys out of UCF, still has some speed, solid hands. Wouldn't necessarily be a long-term guy here at tight end, but we need some tight ends, so Akins is in. And we could use a little bit of youth as well on the team, so Travis Homer, running back out of Miami, 5'10", 202, 24 years old, about the same kind of build as or at least Marlon Mack, I would say. It's a very similar build to Marlon Mack, but we could use some depth there, so let's at least have 3 deep. And for some depth at safety, PJ Williams, 6 foot, 196, 29 years old, played at Florida State, listed as a hybrid, and with the man and zone ratings not being awful, could potentially also play at corner if we need him to. But again, player flexibility. Can't go wrong with that. And to add some more, at least younger depth at safety, we have Sheldrick Redwine, 6 foot, 196, 25 years old, played at Miami. Has a bit of speed, still has some hit power as well. Can play maybe either safety spots. Player flexibility, I like it. Position flexibility, I guess would be a better way to say it. And for some more depth in the DB group, this time at cornerback, James Pierre, 6 foot, 183, 25 years old, out of Florida Atlantic. Definitely can use some progression, but we have a lot of vets to help him progress, hopefully. So he'll finish out the at least 53-man roster for the cornerback group. And as the next highest rated offensive lineman, Cameron Irving, a 68 overall, 30-year-old, out of Florida State. Decent size to him and at least is balanced. Run block power is the lowest with a 69, but has some strength. Not too bad. And let's not forget about backup quarterback, highest overall available to us, James Morgan out of FIU, 6'4", 229, 25 years old, strong arm, and that he does have with 89 throw power, which is pretty good for backup. He at least has some decent short accuracy and a little bit of mobility. Can at least move around a little bit in the pocket, but don't ask him to scramble too much, but let's make sure we at least have a backup quarterback on roster. And another position that's looking pretty light is tight end. The next highest overall is Chris Herndon, the 4th. So definitely has really gone down quite a bit since when he first came into the NFL. Hopefully he could have a resurgence here with his, at least some of, I would think, his college teammates out of Miami. And we still have, I think, around 15 more picks, maybe a little bit more than 15, but around 15 more picks to help fill out this roster. As we go through a quick update here, we have 2 quarterbacks, 3 running backs, no fullbacks, 4 receivers. Could use another receiver as well as tight end. We have 6 offensive linemen. Yeah, 6 offensive linemen. Could use some more backups there. Over on the defense, we have in total for defensive line. It's a little bit weird because I think some of our outside linebackers can also play some edge rush. So let's just say we have 6 defensive linemen, maybe 4 linebackers. We need to make sure we have some more interior linebackers, and I think we'll be good at corner. Maybe could add a safety, and we are going to need a kicker and punter as well. So let's go ahead and look for some linebackers now. And a vet to help fill out the back end of the roster here will be John Bostic, 6'1", 245, 31 years old, out of Florida. Still has some good speed and tackle ability. Just don't ask him to cover. That's something we're definitely lacking on this team, is some good cover linebackers. Now let's start filling out some of the depth at offensive line. Roderick Johnson will be next out of Florida State. A little bit younger, but definitely has a lot of room to improve. But we gotta have some depth on the team, so Johnson is in to provide us some depth. And to give us at least 8 offensive linemen, we'll go with Justin McCray out of UCF, 30 years old. He's listed agile again, not great, but will provide at least some depth. And trying to get some youth here on the team. I feel like we've been drafting a lot of older guys. At receiver, Trey Nixon out of UCF, 24 years old, 6 foot 180. Listed as a playmaker. Definitely is raw, a raw talent, 66 overall, but he has some athleticism. And that's what we're going to try to use. Change of direction at an 86. So might be a returner, maybe season 1, but we need some young guys. And going after a player who could score some points for us, Evan McPherson, kicker out of Florida. He's been solid for the Bengals, I'm pretty sure Bengals, if I remember correctly. So why not bring him in with a lot of kick power, pretty good accuracy and awareness? He might become our MVP. McPherson is in. And here's a player who's a little bit on the younger side with Gabe Nabbers, maybe? 6'3", 235, 24 years old, played at Florida State. Listed as a fullback with 75 speed. And does he have any hands? Where is that catching rating? A 66. Not great, but let's go ahead and add him, because again, not quite sure what we're going to be running on offense yet. And here's a weird one. Jimmy Graham just now popped up out of Miami, a 71 overall, might be our highest overall tight end, maybe. He is 35 years old, so wouldn't be playing for long, but as a 1-year option provides something. So, Jimmy Graham, he's in. And because I'm trying to add some run stoppers to this team, Trayvon Coley out of FAU, 28 years old. He doesn't have fantastic block shedding, but can at least develop a little bit with some block shedding and power moves. Be a versatile guy for us, so we'll bring him in. And we will add one more safety with us having Keanu Neal maybe playing a hybrid linebacker safety role. I'd like to make sure we have enough players. So Terrence Brooks out of Florida State is 30 years old, has a bit of speed as well as cover ability, so be able to provide again more of that position flexibility that we've been looking for. And let's go ahead and add a punter, highest overall available for us, Tommy Townsend, again out of Florida. Has a lot of kick power, pretty good accuracy, awareness could be a little bit better, but 81 speed. Maybe if you want to run some fakes, Tommy Townsend is the guy, so we will add him. And trying to bring in maybe someone who could help cover a little bit. Listed as a pass coverage linebacker, Terrence Smith, 29 years old, played at Florida State. Doesn't have tremendous cover ability, but might be the best of our actual linebackers, so we'll bring him in, at least provide some depth at linebacker. And going back to defensive line, we have Chad Thomas out of Miami, 6'5", 275, 26 years old. Listed as a run stopper. That is what he's best at, but also has a little bit of finesse moves that we could work with pretty decent speed, acceleration, and awareness as well, or strength I meant. I don't even know what awareness is. 59, so not great, but as a 65 overall, about what you would expect, so we'll bring him in as well. Next up will be DeMarcus Walker out of Florida State, 27 years old, 280, 64, 6'4", listed at right end. Again, has a little bit of strength and some speed, but again, a balanced finesse as well as block shedding kind of guy. Position flexibility. That's kind of the name of the game here, I feel like, with the Florida only. And adding some more depth to the cornerback group is Corn Elder, because it's corn. I'm not going to say it any more enthusiastic than that. 27 years old out of Miami. Has some press ability, can work on the zone. Man, at least, is a little bit better, at least in the yellow. So will be a depth player for us. And adding some more depth to receiver, again more on the older side here. 30 years old, Allen Hurns out of Miami. 6'3", 195. Listed receiver. Maybe we try him out at tight end with 86 speed. Not the biggest guy at 195, but has at least some height to him. Listed as a physical guy, and I don't believe we get any sort of run blocking rating. Yeah, only a 45, so not great, but at least depth, maybe position flexibility. We'll find out. And some more depth towards the running back position. Jordan Scarlett out of Florida, 26 years old, decent size to him, has some speed, a little bit of elusiveness, not much in terms of catching though, so more of a 1 to 2 down back. And let's add a little bit of some younger depth here to tight end with Ryan Izzo, 6'5", 255, 26 years old out of Florida State. Doesn't have a lot of speed, has some decent hands, maybe a little bit of run blocking potential as well. With about, I think either this is the last pick or maybe one more. I think that's a solid guy to go after. And some more depth to the offensive line here. David Sharp out of Florida, a big guy, 6'6", 330. He did have an intriguing lead block. Strength is actually pretty good as well. The rest can use some help for sure, but at least a little bit younger. We'll see if he stays on the team. But that is actually it for the draft. So now I could go through and grab any last player available that I'm interested in on the in the open free agent market to fill out the rest of this roster. And now I've gone through the entire free agent pool and brought in anyone that I thought was interesting, primarily young players who can develop. So let's go through a quick run through as a recap of who we brought in. Starting quarterback will for sure be Jameis Winston, be backed up by James Morgan, and we brought in Alex McGough, not quite sure, out of Florida International. In the running back group, D'Ernest Johnson will get the start with Marlon Mack, kind of featuring in every now and then, maybe as a third down kind of guy. We'll see. We'll feel out how it goes. Travis Homer will definitely be on the 53-man roster. And then Jordan Scarlett, I think, was a late draftee, and we did bring in Devontae Price as a rookie out of Florida International, giving us a variety of different running backs who play a very similar type of game. We do only have the one fullback with Gabe Nabers, not quite sure. At receiver, our top two, both 77 overall, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, Van Jefferson, and then T.Y. Hilton we might flex around a little bit, see where he best fits. I don't think we really have anyone on this team that's very good at release. No, we really don't. Most of them are sitting around that 74 mark, so we'll see what we end up getting. But T.Y. Hilton, we might not end up playing him as much as we do with Traquan Smith because we want the younger guy to get better, and there's only one overall of a difference there. Behind them, we have Allen Hurns and then Trey Nixon. Nixon would probably play more than Allen Hurns as well. In the tight end group, Jordan Akins will probably get the start, considering he has the best speed, was probably what will end up working out best. Be Akins. Jimmy Graham can back up for a year, probably then retire. Chris Herndon maybe would then play more than Jimmy Graham, not quite sure. Also have Ryan Izzo, who's the same age and one less overall. So tight end isn't fantastic. At the tackle spot, left tackle DJ Humphries. The linemen are all subject to be moved around, but we have him who will be a starter for sure, with a few backups sitting behind him. At left guard, Eric Flowers, highest overall here. Again, will probably get the start with one backup, Justin McCray. At center, John Feliciano will possibly, he's the highest overall, tied with the youngest, so he will probably get the start there, but might see a little bit of Austin Ryder. And if all of them are playing bad, maybe Jonathan Harris as well. It's all kind of up for grabs. At right guard, looking really weak here. Only one with Brandon Walton. At right tackle, we have Jawan Taylor, who will start, and Cameron Irving might end up going down and playing that guard spot. That right guard spot will definitely be up for whoever's playing the best, I think, of the bunch. Carlos Dunlap, currently top end for the left ends at a 74 overall. At right end, we do have Trey Hendrickson, as well as Jonathan Grenard, who is currently injured. Not sure how long that injury is. I honestly forgot that the injuries were on, and it's a quad tear, out for 6 weeks, so won't be back for week 1, but a couple weeks into the season, he will be back, so maybe he ends up playing more than Carlos Dunlap. I don't know, kind of gives us a little bit of variety. Tayer Tart and Taven Bryan are top 2 interior DTs, defensive linemen. A lot of these groups subject to being moved around as we find out what scheme will work best for us. At left outside linebacker, currently only one guy with Kyer Thomas. Again, subject to change. Middle linebackers, Denzel Perriman and Alex Anzalone will be the top 2. And then a few other guys down the line that could be moved around to the other linebacker spots. Again, if we end up playing more of a 4-3 rather than a 3-4, kind of just see what we end up doing. Over at right outside linebacker, we do have Jalen Phillips, who I want to get out on the field pretty quickly, as he's a young guy with a lot of potential. And JPP, who's the opposite, is no longer at his highest peak, but still has some talent that we could use. At corner, Shaq Griffin. He's also injured. Please don't be long. 2 weeks. Yeah, that's fine. Definitely didn't notice that when I was drafting, but Shaquille Griffin and Xavier Rhodes will be our top 2 corners, with Quentin Dunbar and then quite a few others behind him. I was able to bring in some younger guys in the open free agency, so hopefully they'll be able to progress pretty well. The cornerback group isn't great, but hopefully that's something we could be able to build upon as we move along. At free safety, LaMarcus Joyner, currently highest overall, with a lot of other guys that we can move around. Because again, we were looking for some utility guys in the safety department. Keanu Neal may very well end up playing some sub linebacker for us, and maybe some safety as well. And then kicker, Evan McPherson might end up being MVP year 1. We'll see how well that works out. And punter is Tommy Townsend. So that is the team, and it actually looks like, in terms of our next draft, we'll have 2 first-round picks, a second, 2 thirds, a 5, and a 7. So a little bit jumbled around, but 2 first-round picks might be very good for us. Definitely use some offensive line help, maybe some corner, maybe linebacker. We'll see what Madden ends up giving us. But this is where we will end the first episode of the Florida-only series. Our team is built. In between episodes, I'll move some players around, shuffle some players around to try to fit a scheme. I'll find out what scheme works best for us, and then we'll go from there. But hope you guys enjoyed the build of the Florida team. Next episode on Wednesday, because this should be going out on Saturday, we'll go through the first few games here. I typically try to stick to about 4 games an episode with The Sims. We'll watch maybe 1 full game and a little bit of another game, kind of play it by ear. But the Florida-only team is built. We have a 73 offense, a 77 defense with some room to improve. So I hope you guys are excited. I hope you stick around and seeing how well our 3rd state challenge goes. So if you're not subscribed already, make sure you're hitting that, as well as the bell notification button, little bell icon thing. So that way you can be notified of when these videos go live. Like I said, this series posted every Saturday and Wednesday, or Wednesday and Saturday. The Cardinals traditional franchise, where I play every game, is posted every Monday and Thursday. So check that one out if you have not already. And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed. And until next time, we'll see you later. Bye. How it's supposed to feel.